Medicine's public meeting. It's February 9th, 2026, 11:57 a.m. Public session is held according to OAR 192.610 to 192.690, public meeting laws. Roll call, Ryan Manerick, ND.
Mary Beth Baptista.
Megan Larrabee, ND.
Cia Robles Fernandez, ND.
Josh Looper, public member.
Chair Belashemi, ND.
Ryan Martin, ND.
Okay, that's everybody, right? 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4, 5, 6. Okay. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, how's it going?
Why don't you, I don't know if everybody knows, you want to introduce yourself and then tell us what's the word.
Sure. I have a cat in my lap. That's an important part to know about me.
Oh, precious.
Yeah, I'm sort of known for cats. Yeah, so I'm a compounding pharmacist. I've been practicing here for 17 plus years. And so I've worked very closely with the NDs. I've been on the Formulary Council since 2011, I think, and then I've been the chair for a few years now. So I'm pretty involved in compliance in compounding land. And so I'm pretty well versed in where we're at with different rules and changing landscapes. Any of you who work with compounding will know that there have been major changes. There are more major changes still kind of in progress. And so I just kind of wanted to go over just a little bit how that might affect you and your patients with sort of upcoming changes. So we follow a set of compliance guidelines called USP. And so they kind of set the framework for how we should compound. And there's rules that are like must, and then there's some that are shall. So like best practices versus, absolute requirements. And then it's up to each state to decide with their board of pharmacy how they're going to enforce that. So will they do full enforcement? Will they do partial? I see you also have an orange cat.
Yes, I do.
I love that.
What?
Oh, he's so cute. He's puppy. Oh,
My fluff lauder. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
But yeah, so that's been the part that's kind of been back and forth and all over the place because these passed in 2023 is when they first started enforcement. And then Oregon Board has allowed us to do either like the current one or this new one. So we've had some flexibility in our state. A big change happened though, because Washington changed their rules and they require full compliance with it. So any big compounders who are also licensed in Washington, which a lot of us are because we're so close to the border, have already had to make these changes. And so the things that you would see probably the most impacting, sterile has been a lot more restricted in what you can do. The dating has been shortened significantly. So a lot of us have really narrowed what we're doing with sterile compounding. And then in non-sterile, it's similar with like short dating and different things. There's a lot more testing requirements. There's a lot more cost involved. And so costs for patients are going up. In general, cost of all of our stuff has gone up. A lot of us have been eating it over the last few years. It's getting to a point where we're having to pass that along. And of course, with tight budgets right now, that's tricky for patients for sure. So it's always a balance of compliance and safety with patient access for me. And I think we're definitely a little bit mixed in this. We'll kind of see how it plays out. Oregon Board is currently reviewing their rules for compounding, and they're pretty close to probably moving forward with requiring the new USP. We have a meeting this week, actually later this week. They're going to review the draft rules again. And then if they feel comfortable, then they'll move it to rulemaking hearing. So the earliest we're looking at would be April. But it just kind of depends on how much public feedback they wanted. The board members in the last meeting expressed that they do want quite a bit of more public feedback because when we last opened this up, it was like 2 years ago. There was a lot of feedback and everyone just kind of went, let's put a pin in it and let's see what happens. So I do think we'll see forward movement. I think with your big places, you're not going to see a huge change because we probably have already done it. But it kind of depends on how the board chooses to enforce some of this stuff. You never quite know until things go live. Your biggest restrictions, I would say, would be some of the vitamins and a lot of the herbs that you all use. We are very restricted in what and how we are allowed to source and use those now. And so if that is enforced heavily, you may lose some of those things. I think that would be something that I would anticipate for sure as people become more compliant with this. And then desiccated thyroid is kind of its own animal, but I thought I would mention it. So in 2020, FDA reclassified it as a biologic. That's a whole story. And they delayed enforcement for a while. And then last August, they put out a letter saying in 1 year, so this August, they will no longer allow it to be compounded, produced, anything like that, unless you have a biologic patent and approval on that, which AbbVie, who bought and now makes Armor, is already in the progress of and is probably coincidentally expected to have available in August. So that means no compounding. That means Armor will be back, but as a biologic, which means price tag is going to go up, up, up. Insurance already isn't great at covering this. I don't anticipate that getting better. I anticipate that getting worse. So just as a heads up in that kind of land. And that's outside of what like our board and stuff are doing. There's certainly like citizens petitions and things that are out, like our big compounding groups are fighting this, but I don't know. They're not like terribly optimistic we're going to get this changed, but we are raising a ruckus. So, but yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with everything. I was just kind of curious if you all had any questions or any information you wanted or anything that would be helpful in this kind of area.
Any information on peptide, GLPs, and those things, since that's such a big headliner?
Oh yeah, that one's getting juicy. So on Friday, FDA put out an announcement that if you are compounding GLP-1s, they don't care what kind, they don't care how you're doing it, they will go after you and they will turn you into like Department of Justice, which I'm not really clear on how they could even be involved in that. But yeah, that took a big leap forward on Friday. So yeah, that's an interesting situation. So GLP-1s are tricky. There's certainly people who are still compounding them. It's not in shortage anymore. So a lot of us stepped out of the game. The big players are still doing it because they are making enough money they can fight the lawsuits. But now with FDA taking that stance, it'll be interesting. And the drug makers for both are going to all the different boards. And so they went to boards of pharmacy and kind of got shot down. They went to boards of medicine, got shot down. Now they're going to legislature. So multiple states. Right now, I think there's like 9 have different restrictions that they're trying to put into the legislature statutes about GLP-1s, or some of them are even broader. Washington had a really broad one that would have been a problem, but that looks right now to be dead in the water. So yeah, that's an interesting area. Peptides are tricky too. So there's only a handful that are on the list that we are allowed to compound. There are quite a few that are available that are not on that list. And my caution to all of you with that is that means they have not undergone any kind of FDA inspections, quality control to a level that we are like expecting if you're getting a sterile product. I'm aware of some marketing of that, and like some of the companies are rather aggressive in their approach towards different docs. Like I've had a few reach out to me and they've asked me about the companies. I looked them up. I don't really understand how they're doing what they do because they private label each thing and give things like they look like brand names almost, but they can't be because they haven't gone through any process. And these aren't 503B, which is like the big like compound / manufacturer. So I'm unclear on how that's legal in any kind of way. So I have expressed caution for that, just from a liability standpoint. Um, for
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
Uh,
my understanding, or at least my discussion with my team, was that because of that law and pharmacies can't compound it, you're basically telling a patient to go get it off the black market, which is then you're prescribing a illegal, or however you want to determine that, medication. I think that's a huge risky area, it seems like. Is that consistent with what you're implying?
I agree. Yeah. And I'm not saying that it's right. Like these restrictions, like we're
Yeah,
very clear there's a lot of money in politics in this,
of
right?
course.
Like everyone's fully aware. But the reality is, if that's how it's being enforced, it still leaves us vulnerable. It leaves you vulnerable. And for me, like I know if I were recommending something for a patient, I'd want to be really clear on like what safety protocols and quality control and like have you check, because everything that like you're getting from say like my type pharmacy, this is every powder has undergone all these checks and quality control on it as compared to like a standard. And, we know what's going on with all that. And I'm not saying with the GLP-1s because you can get those.
Yeah, those are on the okay list. Right.
Exactly. Like you can get those powders. Those have been cleared, even though they claim they're not the same. I don't really know how, but those are fine. It's the other peptides. And so like it's funny because I'll have companies reaching out to me like, oh, you should buy these. And I'm like, but how are you getting them into the country? And they're like, don't ask questions. I'm like, that's not how it works. We're supposed to ask a lot of questions. So yeah, I've just had to advise to kind of stay out of that unless like, and there are a few, right? There are a few that are on the list that are okay. And they're coming out of the big 503Bs and that's fine, right? Those have undergone like all of that. So that's not my concern. It's the other ones. Yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any pharmacy rules that are in flux that they should be aware of, that we should be telling people to look at? And
The compounding rules are, but I'm a subject matter expert for the board now, and so like I've helped advise on that, and so we've really just simplified it a lot. I think one of the things that might be a little interesting is Washington did this, and so we're going to do something similar in that if a place is from a state that doesn't enforce USP, they have to show that you've had a third party come in and show your compliance with USP. Washington requires that for us right now. And so there's a chance if you're using an out-of-state place from a state that doesn't use USP and they haven't gone through that, you may lose access to that. But that also, they're giving like some time for that. That won't be like right away, right? Because that takes time to have people come out and do those inspections and stuff. So they wouldn't enforce that right away. That's what they're kind of discussing right now is like what date would be reasonable. I'm guessing it'll be a couple of years. They'll probably give people a decent amount of time because a lot of the state boards are passing this right now too. So they're kind of just giving some time for everything to play catch up with that. So eventually that may be a restriction, but shouldn't be a problem right now. Everywhere, like say out of Washington, California, all of those are USP already. So like that's not your issue. It would be other random kind of states that could be potentially an issue for that. But the rules are actually like they've simplified them a bunch. There was quite a bit of FDA language in them that we got taken out. So they're much more streamlined and just very simple and follow like what you can trace back to a federal law or guideline instead of current industry standard, which I think can be risky because those change and they're not enforceable. So yeah, so there was just language that had not ever been ratified by law that they were putting into rule. And I was like, well, maybe we could use actual law language. So it's good. Yeah. Yeah, it's been good. Very good changes. I'm pleased with where we're at with it now. It's a lot simpler. I'm still sad just from an access standpoint for patients, just because like there's some things we had to stop making and it's a big investment to keep doing pretty much any kind of sterile thing. So you'll definitely, there's more and more like smaller pharmacies that can't keep up with this, right? And so we'll still see some more with this enforcement because it's usually a minimum of several $100,000 to do all the renovations needed to be compliant. From a lot of us, it's actually in the millions. So if you aren't big, you can't afford to do these changes. So A lot of small places have closed over the last few years. You're going to see probably more of that, or at least places that are going to stop doing compounding. So that's my biggest concern is just like rural access is tricky. And like, of course, you know, you can ship everywhere, but it's the emergency type things that are the hardest, you know, like the mouthwashes or Fisher creams, things that you just want to be able to walk in and get right away. That's probably the saddest part. And we tried to figure out if there's any kind of carve out for that we can do, but it's tricky with the rules. So they're definitely discussing that piece. That was my suggestion, was to open up, if possible, at least some minor things like that, but it's hard. So yeah, it's definitely a changing game for sure.
Well, I'm glad that you're writing the rules, because a while ago you were like, let's go. I'm glad that you got in there and started to do that.
Yep. Yep. It's yeah, I was really pleased. Yeah, they were open to that and that was great. And that has been really helpful. And yeah, it's nice. And because I'm a subject matter expert too, they actually can have me like on standby in the meeting so that if people have questions, they can ask, which is nice too. So I did that for the first time in December. And that was helpful to see. But there's definitely different opinions because places who are all in versus places that are dabbling a little bit, the dabblers don't want to be all in. And it's like, well, you can't really have different rules depending on if you do a small number versus big, but there are. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see how this meeting goes. There was definitely a lot of back and forth with the last one, but everyone seemed in agreement on the simplification, which is good. The
Yeah,
less
that is good.
verbose, the better. So
100%.
yeah. But yeah, so that's where we're at.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any more questions?
Yeah, thanks for asking about the GLP-1s and the peptides. I get so many questions on that, and it's a good one because it's so murky for people and it's so hard to know. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I definitely should. That definitely needs to be covered for sure. Cool.
Cool.
Sweet.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
thanks, Allie. I'll see you in a couple weeks at the Formulary Council, and appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it. I know this is a busy board meeting week for me.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
See ya.
Thank you.
Okay. These cats are going to eat my face off if I don't feed them, and I have to go to the bathroom, and I'm going to be hangry here in a minute. Can we take a 15-minute break and come back at 12:30?
Sounds good.
Is that enough time for everybody? 15 minutes? Okay.
Totally fine by me.
Okay. I am stopping recording.